good to see so many old people from Eglon, but familiar faces down there. So I would like to welcome you all to the 60th anniversary reunion and to this morning's meditation. And I'm pleased to see that we haven't forgotten that traditionally the Eglon Day begins with a moment or two of silence. School reunions, in my experience, are strange affairs. They have a compulsive attraction, born, I suppose, of curiosity, but they also have an element of apprehension. Will he be there? Will he have forgiven me by now? What does she or he look like? And these occasions are not without their dangers for people like me who've reached their 70s. This is the age when you are in danger of being dragged out of retirement and asked to do things like this when you are not yet quite decrepit enough to turn them down. But whatever you think of them, there is one thing reunions almost always achieve. They focus the mind on the passage of time. And they remind us all that we are not quite so young as we used to be. A few weeks ago, I returned from a university reunion in Cambridge, which included sitting down to dinner together with 250 other septuagenarians, most of whom I hadn't seen for 50 years, and probably never will see them again. That's scary. But fortunately, we were served with a splendid dinner, and it was a lot of fun. I hope the same will be true for you this reunion weekend at Eglon. The Eglon meditation was introduced in the early years of the school by the founder, John Collette, JC, to those of you who knew him personally. And the fact that it is still part of the daily program shows that it has stood the test of time. I think it's difficult for us to envisage Eglon without it, but it will inevitably be threatened by pressure from other so-called priorities over which the school may have little control. It's up to us, and perhaps you especially, to preserve it and the other traditional Eglon institutions which you value and which make Eglon what it is. Change is sometimes necessary if the school is not to be fossilized, but this should not be at the risk of depriving Eglon of its basic aim and first principles. I like to think that many of you have a copy of this book on your bookshelves at home. It's an anthology of meditations given at Eglon over the years and put together 20 years ago by Teddy Sen. Good morning, Teddy. Much of the guidance it gives is timeless, and there is no mistaking the overriding importance of the meditation in the mind of John Collette when he founded his school. In the preface, he writes, "I regard the meditation as the center of life of the school and the point from which its whole character and sense of purpose stems." What he was saying was that Eglon should look beyond the manner of the average school at that time, which tended to overemphasize the importance of literacy and numeracy to the detriment of the life of the spirit. What the Eglon meditation does at its best is to stop the clock. It gives us a brief opportunity to slow down and relax the mind from its preoccupation with the clutter of things we ought to have done and haven't. Whoever leads the meditation can drop an idea into our minds, which we can focus on in the silence that follows. It serves to remind us that the intensely secular world in which we live today cannot satisfy all our needs, and indeed there are many highly qualified young people today who feel a little lost and don't know where to place their trust. The Eglon meditation may not always work, but many alumni, when asked what they remember best from their time at Eglon, they mentioned the meditation, so it must be telling us something. If you ask the average young person who is still in school or at university why they are there, the answer is most likely to be so that I can pass my exams, go to university, get a good job, and earn a good salary. That's all very laudable and necessary, but it also mirrors society's tendency to place supreme value on what can be qualified by tests and exams. John Colet understood that there are values which ultimately surpass the importance of the skills of literacy and numeracy. This explains why Eglon emphasizes what it calls the education of the spirit and the education of the whole man, which, incidentally, John Colet once famously used to justify his decision to open the doors of Eglon to girls. You can't educate the whole man if you don't have the other half. So, what does this mean, or what should this mean, in the daily life of Eglon? What are those values which are ultimately so much more important for all of us? In his very first school prospectus, John Colet wrote, "The permanent satisfactions in life are to be had only through the service of God and our fellow man." Service implies consideration and respect for others, the antithesis of prejudice and bigotry. Put people first, regardless of colour or culture. This doesn't mean inviting them to trample all over us, but it does mean listening to others and respecting their opinions. And this is where old-fashioned good manners and money come into play. Too often we forget that a polite word of thanks or appreciation can work wonders. They don't cost much, but the dividends they pay can be enormous. And money? It often gets a bad name, radix malorum est cupidtas.